There are seasons in life when noise begins to feel heavier than it once did. Conversations that used to energize you become strangely exhausting. Constant notifications, social obligations, and other people's opinions start to interfere with something quieter that is trying to emerge within you. Before you go, if you're looking for a simple way to reduce stress and find more inner peace, I have something for you. Check out the ebook, The SIM Method, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and mental clarity. It only takes 5 minutes a day and can help you build a calmer, clearer mind. The link is in the first pinned comment, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to The Trauma of Being for more content like this. You may not be angry with the world, nor are you necessarily losing interest in life. You may simply sense that your inner world is changing faster than your external life can understand. In such moments, silence can stop feeling empty and begin to feel necessary. It becomes a psychological space where emotions can settle, hidden conflicts can become visible, and unfamiliar parts of your personality can finally be heard. From a Jungian perspective, this desire for quiet may accompany a period of inner reorganization, a time when the identity you have presented to the world no longer expresses everything you are becoming. Before you go, if you're looking for a simple way to reduce stress and find more inner peace, I have something for you. Check out the ebook, The SIM Method, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and mental clarity. It only takes 5 minutes a day and can help you build a calmer, clearer mind. The link is in the first pinned comment, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to The Trauma of Being for more content like this. Carl Jung's psychology invites us to consider that human development involves more than adapting successfully to society. We also have to recognize the neglected emotions, desires, fears, and possibilities that remain outside our ordinary awareness. Jung described this lifelong movement toward greater psychological wholeness as individuation. It does not mean becoming perfect, abandoning relationships, or declaring yourself more enlightened than everyone else. It means gradually learning to distinguish your authentic values from the expectations you have absorbed from family, culture, work, and social roles. Silence can support this process because it reduces the pressure to perform. When there is no audience to impress and no immediate demand to answer, the personality has an opportunity to reveal its contradictions. You may notice grief hidden beneath productivity, anger concealed by politeness, creativity buried under responsibility, or a desire for change that constant activity helped you avoid. Silence does not create these realities, it simply makes them harder to ignore. But the need for silence must be understood carefully. Wanting a quiet evening, reducing stimulation, or spending time alone is not automatically evidence of a spiritual awakening, and prolonged isolation can sometimes signal exhaustion, depression, anxiety, or emotional distress. Healthy silence should gradually help you return to life with greater clarity, not disconnect you indefinitely from meaningful relationships and responsibilities. In this video, we will explore 7 signs that your growing need for silence may be connected to a changing inner world, while also examining when solitude becomes avoidance rather than reflection. Each sign will include a Jungian interpretation, an everyday example, and a practical question you can use to understand your own experience. If you appreciate thoughtful psychological content that goes beyond motivational slogans, subscribe to the channel. And as you listen, consider this question. When you seek silence, are you moving closer to yourself, or merely trying to escape what feels difficult? 1. You feel overwhelmed by conversations that once felt normal. One of the earliest signs that your inner world may be changing is a growing sensitivity to conversations that once felt completely ordinary. Casual gossip, habitual complaints, predictable social rituals, and discussions centered on appearances may suddenly leave you tired rather than connected. Nothing dramatic needs to happen. You can sit with familiar people, smile at the appropriate moments, and participate as you always have, yet return home feeling as if something inside you has been drained. This does not necessarily mean that the people around you have changed. The more uncomfortable possibility is that the psychological role you once played in those conversations no longer fits you as naturally as it did before. Much of everyday communication is shaped by what Jung called the persona, the socially adapted identity through which we present ourselves to the world. The persona is not inherently false. It allows us to cooperate, work, maintain relationships, and respond appropriately in different social environments. Problems arise when we become so identified with this public role that we mistake it for the whole personality. You may be known as the agreeable friend, the endlessly capable employee, the calm family member, or the person who always entertains the group. For years, performing that role may have felt effortless, but when the inner personality begins to develop in a different direction, maintaining the same performance can become surprisingly exhausting. Consider someone who has always been the listener in every friendship. Other people call whenever they need reassurance, advice, or a safe place to release their frustrations. This person rarely objects because being needed has become part of their identity. Over time, however, they begin to notice resentment, fatigue, and a desire for more reciprocal conversations. A phone call that once produced a sense of purpose now creates tension before it even begins. The immediate temptation may be to blame the caller, but a deeper interpretation is possible. The old role of permanent emotional caretaker no longer represents the person's complete inner reality. The discomfort is revealing a boundary that was previously ignored. This is why ordinary conversations can begin to feel unusually loud during periods of psychological change. You are not only processing the words being spoken, you are also becoming aware of the invisible expectations beneath them. Perhaps the group expects you to agree with opinions you no longer share. Perhaps a family discussion silently requires you to become the obedient child again, even though you are now an independent adult. Perhaps workplace conversation rewards ambition and competition, while another part of you is questioning whether constant achievement still gives your life meaning. The exhaustion comes from managing the distance between what you outwardly express and what you inwardly experience. From a Jungian perspective, this tension can be understood as a signal rather than a verdict. It does not automatically prove that you have outgrown everyone around you, nor does it mean that ordinary conversation is shallow and you alone have become profound. That interpretation would merely replace one persona with another, the identity of the misunderstood or spiritually superior outsider. Genuine inner development usually makes a person more honest and more compassionate, not more contemptuous. The important question is not, why is everyone so superficial, but rather, what am I repeatedly pretending not to feel when I am with them? Silence becomes valuable here because it gives you time to separate social fatigue from social judgment. After a draining interaction, instead of immediately deciding to end a friendship or withdraw from the group, you can sit quietly and examine what actually occurred. Which moment caused your body to tense? What subject made you disappear behind a polite smile? Did you feel pressured to agree, entertain, advise, defend, or reveal more than you wanted? These specific observations are more useful than the vague conclusion that people are exhausting. Silence can transform irritation into information by showing you precisely where your external behavior has stopped matching your internal truth. You may discover that the solution is not isolation, but a different quality of participation. Perhaps you need to speak less when you have nothing sincere to add. Perhaps you need to redirect a conversation away from constant criticism. Admit that you do not have the energy to offer advice or express an opinion without softening it until it becomes unrecognizable. These changes can feel uncomfortable because they disturb established relationships. People who benefited from your old persona may interpret a healthy boundary as rejection. Yet learning to remain present without automatically performing your previous role can be an important part of becoming more psychologically integrated. At the same time, persistent overwhelm deserves careful attention. If nearly every conversation feels unbearable, if you are withdrawing from everyone for long periods, or if social contact produces intense fear, hopelessness, or physical distress, the experience should not be romanticized as individuation. Burnout, anxiety, depression, sensory overload, grief, and other difficulties can also reduce a person's capacity for interaction. Jungian reflection can offer meaningful language for inner conflict, but it should not replace professional support when distress begins to impair daily life. Healthy solitude normally restores some capacity for connection. It does not continually make the entire human world feel impossible to tolerate. So when familiar conversations begin to overwhelm you, resist the urge to make an immediate judgment about yourself or others. Treat the discomfort as an invitation to investigate the role you are being asked to play. Ask yourself, what version of me enters this conversation? And what does that version have to suppress in order to remain accepted? Your need for silence may be asking for a temporary retreat, not so you can disappear from relationships, but so you can return without abandoning yourself. The goal is not to speak to fewer people simply for the sake of withdrawal. It is to create relationships in which your words, boundaries, attention, and inner experience are no longer moving in opposite directions. 2. You need distance from the identity. Others expect you to maintain. Another sign of inner change appears when the identity that other people recognize no longer feels like the person you are becoming. Friends, relatives, and colleagues may continue to relate to you through an older image. The reliable one, the quiet one, the ambitious one, the peacemaker, the rebel, or the person who never needs help. These descriptions may contain truth, but they can also become psychological cages when everyone expects you to behave consistently with them. As your inner life develops, you may feel an increasing need for distance, not necessarily because you reject these people, but because their expectations keep calling an outdated version of you back into existence. Every relationship develops patterns. People learn what they can expect from one another, and those expectations create stability. Within a family, one person may become the responsible child, while another is treated as the difficult one. In a friendship group, someone may be expected to provide humor, emotional support, or practical solutions. These roles are often established without a formal conversation. They are repeated until they appear natural. The problem is that psychological growth requires movement, while social systems often reward predictability. When you begin to change, the people around you may unconsciously encourage you to return to the role that makes the relationship familiar and comfortable. Jung's concept of the persona helps explain why this tension can feel so powerful. The persona develops partly through adaptation. We learn which qualities receive approval and which ones create conflict. A naturally sensitive child, for example, may discover that emotional restraint earns respect in the family. Over time, that restraint becomes part of the child's public identity. As an adult, the person may appear independent and composed while privately struggling to recognize or communicate emotional needs. When inner development begins to bring those neglected needs into awareness, the established identity can no longer contain the full personality. What once provided social protection may now obstruct psychological honesty. Imagine a woman who has spent years being praised for her independence. She solves problems alone, rarely complains, and refuses to burden anyone. Her competence is real, yet it may also conceal a fear that asking for support will make her unworthy of respect. During a period of transition, she begins to recognize how lonely this position has become. When she tries to express vulnerability, however, people respond by reminding her how strong she is. Their praise unintentionally pushes her back into the very identity she is attempting to expand. She may then seek silence because it is the only place where she is not required to prove her strength. Distance can create a temporary space in which a new psychological possibility is allowed to exist before it is strong enough to face external pressure. This resembles the quiet period required for any significant transformation. A decision, value, or emerging aspect of personality may initially feel uncertain. If it is exposed too quickly to criticism, advice, or misunderstanding, you may abandon it before determining whether it is genuinely important. Silence allows you to ask what you believe before hearing what everyone else believes you should do. It protects the early stages of self-knowledge without requiring you to defend conclusions you have not yet fully formed. However, needing distance does not mean that everyone else is controlling or malicious. Most people rely on familiar images because relationships would become confusing if every interaction began without any sense of continuity. Someone who still sees you through an older identity may simply have received no evidence that you have changed. Inner transformation can remain invisible when it is never communicated. It is therefore important to distinguish between people who refuse to recognize your development and people who have not yet been given an honest opportunity to understand it. Silence can clarify your experience, but eventually some form of communication may be necessary. A useful exercise is to write down the identities you believe you are expected to maintain. Complete sentences such as, "In my family, I am always the one who," "My friends expect me to," and "At work, I feel valued only when I." Then ask what each role gives you and what it costs you. Being the responsible one may provide status but prevent rest. Being the agreeable one may protect relationships but suppress anger. Being the successful one may attract admiration but make failure feel intolerable. The purpose is not to destroy every social role. It is to recognize that a role should remain a tool of the personality rather than becoming its master. As you become more conscious of these expectations, small changes can begin to reshape your relationships. You might decline a request without inventing an excuse, admit uncertainty instead of performing confidence, or allow another person to solve a problem you would normally take over. These actions may appear minor, but they challenge deeply established patterns. Some people will adjust and become curious about the person emerging beneath the old identity. Others may react negatively because your change forces them to confront their own dependence on the previous arrangement. Their reaction offers information, but it does not automatically determine whether your change is healthy or justified. Ultimately, the purpose of distance is not to erase your history or construct a completely new personality overnight. It is to discover which aspects of your old identity remain authentic and which were maintained mainly to secure acceptance. Jungian individuation involves holding continuity and change together. You do not become someone unrelated to who you were, but you stop reducing yourself to the qualities that society found most convenient. Ask yourself, who might I become if I were not constantly performing the person others already understand? The silence surrounding that question may initially feel uncertain, yet it can become the space in which a more complete identity begins to take shape. 3. Your old sources of stimulation no longer satisfy you. A third sign of inner change appears when the activities that once distracted, entertained, or motivated you begin to lose their emotional power. You may still scroll through the same platforms, watch the same programs, attend the same social events, or pursue the same goals, but the experience feels strangely flat. You repeat familiar routines, hoping to recover the satisfaction they once provided, yet something remains absent. This can be confusing because nothing is obviously wrong with the activities themselves. The deeper issue may be that your psychological needs have changed, while your habits continue to serve an earlier version of you. Stimulation is not inherently harmful. Entertainment, conversation, music, travel, ambition, and digital connection can all enrich life. They become problematic when they are used continuously to prevent contact with uncomfortable thoughts or emotions. A person may fill every quiet moment with sound without consciously deciding to do so. A podcast during breakfast, music while working, videos while eating, and social media before sleeping. The mind is rarely left without external input. When this pattern becomes automatic, stimulation stops being a chosen pleasure and begins functioning as protection against the inner world. During periods of psychological transition, that protection may become less effective. The unconscious material seeking attention does not necessarily disappear when you increase the volume. Restlessness, dissatisfaction, grief, resentment, or questions about meaning can remain beneath the entertainment. You may consume more content, but enjoy it less. Pursue more excitement, but feel increasingly disconnected, or achieve another goal without experiencing the fulfillment you expected. The loss of satisfaction can therefore operate like a psychological signal. It suggests that external activity is no longer answering the internal question that has begun to form. From a Jungian perspective, energy withdrawn from an old interest does not always indicate laziness or failure. Jung used the concept of libido more broadly than sexual desire, describing it as psychic energy that can move between different aims, images, and stages of development. When a familiar ambition loses its force, That energy may be reorganizing itself around a new psychological task. A person once driven by recognition, for example, may begin to value meaning, creativity, service, or emotional honesty. The old goal becomes less compelling because it can no longer carry the full weight of the person's developing life. Imagine someone who built an identity around constant productivity. Promotions, completed projects, and public recognition once produced genuine excitement. Eventually, however, each achievement begins to feel shorter-lived. Instead of questioning the meaning of the pattern, the person initially responds by working harder and setting larger goals. But increased effort produces only deeper exhaustion. In silence, a different truth may emerge. Achievement was not merely a passion, it was also a way of earning worth and avoiding the fear of being ordinary. The declining satisfaction is not necessarily demanding the abandonment of work. It may be asking for a healthier relationship with ambition. This stage can feel like emptiness because the old source of meaning has weakened before a new one has fully developed. People often become frightened by this intermediate condition and rush to fill it. They may change careers impulsively, end relationships without reflection, buy unnecessary things, seek increasingly intense experiences, or adopt a new identity simply to escape uncertainty. Yet not every empty space is a problem requiring immediate correction. Sometimes the psyche needs a period in which yesterday's answers no longer work and tomorrow's answers are not yet available. Silence allows you to remain in that space long enough to learn from it. A practical response is to distinguish nourishment from stimulation. Stimulation captures attention and produces an immediate reaction. Nourishment leaves you feeling more coherent after the experience ends. An hour of compulsive scrolling may be highly stimulating while leaving you restless and fragmented. Reading a thoughtful book, walking without headphones, creating something with your hands, or having an honest conversation may feel less exciting at first, but produce a deeper sense of presence. Ask yourself not only, did this entertain me? But also, what condition did this activity leave me in? That second question reveals whether a habit supports your development or merely postpones discomfort. It is equally important not to interpret every loss of pleasure as a profound spiritual transition. A persistent inability to enjoy nearly anything can be associated with depression, burnout, grief, chronic stress, or other health concerns. If this experience lasts for an extended period, disrupts basic functioning, or is accompanied by hopelessness, severe fatigue, changes in sleep or appetite, or thoughts of self-harm, it deserves professional attention. Psychological symbolism can add meaning to an experience, but it should not be used to dismiss concrete suffering. Responsible self-reflection includes recognizing when silence alone is insufficient and outside support is needed. If your old sources of stimulation no longer satisfy you, avoid forcing yourself to feel enthusiasm simply because an activity belongs to your established identity. Reduce unnecessary input for a while and observe what returns when the noise subsides. Which interests arise without social approval? What kind of work absorbs you without requiring recognition? Which experiences leave you calmer, clearer, or more connected to reality? Your changing inner world may not be telling you to reject pleasure. It may be teaching you to recognize the difference between what briefly occupies your attention and what genuinely participates in the life you are becoming. 4. Unprocessed emotions become louder in constant noise. A fourth sign that your inner world is changing appears when constant noise no longer hides what you feel. Busyness may once have helped you move through the day without confronting sadness, anger, fear, loneliness, or disappointment. As long as there was another task to complete, message to answer, or problem to solve, uncomfortable emotions remained in the background. Eventually, however, they begin to appear even in the middle of activity. You may become irritated without understanding why, feel unexpectedly emotional during an ordinary moment, or experience a heaviness that entertainment cannot remove. The emotion is not necessarily new. Your ability to ignore it may simply be weakening. Human beings often develop sophisticated methods of emotional avoidance. Some people work excessively, while others fill their schedules with social obligations. Some intellectualize every feeling, explaining it so thoroughly that they never actually experience it. Others use humor, positivity, consumption, or constant concern for other people to avoid turning inward. These strategies may provide temporary stability, particularly when an emotion once felt too overwhelming to process, but a coping mechanism that was useful in one period of life can become restrictive in another. When the psyche is ready to integrate what was postponed, the old distraction may stop providing relief. Jung's idea of the shadow offers one way to understand this experience. The shadow includes aspects of personality that conscious identity does not recognize or willingly accept. It may contain qualities we judge negatively, such as jealousy, aggression, selfishness, or fear, but it can also hold healthy assertiveness, creativity, ambition, tenderness, and other capacities that were discouraged. An emotion may enter the shadow because it conflicts with the persona we are expected to maintain. The endlessly patient person may disown anger. The strong person may reject vulnerability. The generous person may refuse to acknowledge resentment. Yet exclusion from conscious identity does not make these emotions disappear. When an ignored emotion returns, it frequently appears through disproportionate reactions. A minor interruption produces intense anger. Another person's success causes unexpected bitterness. A harmless comment feels like a serious rejection. It is tempting to focus entirely on the immediate event, but the intensity may belong partly to an older experience. The present moment has touched something that was never fully understood. This does not mean the current situation is irrelevant or that every reaction is irrational. It means emotional intensity can contain more than one layer, and silence gives you an opportunity to separate what is happening now from what has accumulated over time. For example, imagine someone who becomes deeply upset when a friend cancels a meeting. On the surface, the reaction seems excessive. In quiet reflection, however, the person recognizes a recurring fear of being unimportant. Memories emerge of childhood promises that were repeatedly broken and relationships in which their needs were treated as optional. The cancelled meeting is still disappointing, but it is also activating an older emotional pattern. This recognition does not excuse destructive behavior toward the friend. Instead, it creates responsibility by allowing the person to respond to the current situation without unconsciously demanding that one relationship repair every abandonment from the past. Silence can help an emotion become more specific. Instead of saying, "I feel terrible," you may discover that you feel humiliated, excluded, envious, frightened, or disappointed. Naming the emotion accurately reduces confusion and makes an appropriate response more possible. Anger may indicate that a boundary has been crossed. Grief may reveal that something meaningful has ended. Envy may point toward an unlived desire. Fear may warn of real danger, but it may also accompany the unfamiliarity of growth. Emotions are not infallible commands, yet they carry information. Listening to them means investigating their message rather than automatically obeying or suppressing them. A simple reflective practice can support this investigation. When a strong emotion arises, pause before constructing a complete story around it. Notice where it appears in the body, what thought accompanies it, and what impulse it produces. Then ask, what happened immediately before this feeling? What does this situation seem to say about me? And when have I experienced something similar? Writing the answers without editing them can reveal associations that ordinary thinking overlooks. The purpose is not to analyze yourself endlessly, but to build a bridge between an emotional reaction and conscious understanding. Still, silence must not become emotional rumination. Reflection moves toward greater clarity and a proportionate response. Rumination repeats the same painful interpretation without producing new understanding. If quiet time only intensifies self-criticism, catastrophic thinking, or traumatic memories, a more supported form of processing may be necessary. Speaking with a qualified mental health professional, trusted person, or support service can provide structure and perspective. The Jungian goal is not to descend into the unconscious without limits. It is to develop a conscious relationship with inner material while remaining grounded in daily life. As your inner world changes, unprocessed emotions may become louder, because they can no longer remain excluded from the person you are becoming. Their return is uncomfortable, but discomfort is not the same as failure. It may be evidence that an old psychological arrangement, one built on suppression, performance, or distraction, is becoming unsustainable. Ask yourself, what feeling has been trying to reach me beneath all this noise, and what responsible action does it require? Silence becomes valuable when it allows the emotion to move from an unnamed force controlling your behavior into a recognized part of your experience that can be understood, expressed, and integrated. 5. Your dreams and inner images demand more attention. A fifth sign of inner transformation appears when your dreams, memories, fantasies, and spontaneous inner images begin to feel unusually vivid. You may wake with the sense that a dream contains something important, even if its meaning remains unclear. A forgotten place may repeatedly return to your imagination. Certain symbols, an abandoned house, a dark forest, an unknown child, a locked room, or a distant ocean, may appear across different dreams. These experiences do not automatically predict the future or deliver supernatural instructions. Their value may lie in the way they express emotional realities that your conscious mind has not yet found words to describe. Modern life encourages us to treat dreams as disposable mental noise. We wake, reach for the phone, and allow messages, headlines, and responsibilities to replace the images that were present only moments earlier. Yet Jung considered dreams an important expression of unconscious psychological activity. He believed they could compensate for the one-sided attitudes of waking consciousness by presenting perspectives that the ego ignores. A person who insists that everything is under control, for example, may dream repeatedly of unstable buildings or lost luggage. The dream does not prove that disaster is coming. It may dramatize the insecurity excluded from the person's conscious self-image. Inner images often become more noticeable when the familiar identity begins to loosen. The conscious mind prefers established explanations because they provide continuity and control. The unconscious communicates less directly, using emotion, association, contradiction, and symbol. This is why an image can affect you before you understand it. A dream about missing a train might involve anxiety about opportunity, fear of falling behind, resistance to a direction you never chose, or something entirely personal. A symbol does not have one universal definition that applies equally to everyone. Its meaning depends on the dreamer's history, emotional response, and current circumstances. Imagine someone who repeatedly dreams of discovering an unused room inside their home. A simplistic interpretation might claim that the room always means hidden potential. A more responsible approach begins with questions. What does the house feel like? Is the room welcoming or threatening? What is inside it? What was happening in the person's life when the dream began? Perhaps the dream accompanies the discovery of a creative interest that was neglected for years. Perhaps it reflects an emotional memory that has not been explored. The image becomes useful not because a dream dictionary supplies the answer, but because sustained reflection connects it to the person's lived experience. Silence matters because symbolic material is easily drowned out by immediate explanation. If you rush to define every dream, you may force it to confirm what you already believe. Sitting quietly with an image allows multiple associations to emerge. You might draw the scene, describe it in writing, or imagine what each figure would say if given a voice. Jung developed a related method known as active imagination, but this practice should not be reduced to uncontrolled fantasy or treated as a substitute for professional therapy. Its basic insight is that an inner image can be approached with curiosity rather than dismissed or interpreted too quickly. A practical dream journal can help you notice recurring themes without turning every dream into a dramatic revelation. Keep a notebook near your bed and record whatever remains when you wake, including emotions, colors, people, settings, and fragments of dialogue. Give the dream a simple title and note what happened the previous day. After several weeks, look for patterns. Do certain images appear during conflict, exhaustion, or major decisions? Does the same emotion return in different scenes? The purpose is not to prove a fixed symbolic system. It is to observe how your inner life responds to the way you are currently living. Dreams can also reveal neglected strengths, not only hidden problems. Someone who feels powerless in waking life may dream of protecting another person or crossing a dangerous landscape. A highly rational individual may encounter imaginative, playful, or spiritual imagery. These dreams do not automatically mean that the dreamer should imitate them literally. They may indicate qualities seeking greater recognition within the personality. Jungian interpretation asks how the conscious attitude might become more balanced. The useful question is often not, "What will happen?" but "What part of my current way of living does this image challenge or complete?" Care is necessary when working with disturbing dreams or intense inner experiences. Nightmares can be associated with stress, trauma, medication, sleep disruption, and several physical or psychological conditions. If dreams repeatedly interfere with sleep, produce severe distress, or blur the boundary between imagination and waking reality, professional guidance may be appropriate. Inner images should be explored while maintaining connection with ordinary life, reliable relationships, and practical responsibilities. Psychological depth does not require treating every mental event as a command, cosmic message, or unquestionable truth. When dreams and inner images demand more attention, your task is neither blind belief nor immediate dismissal. Approach them as symbolic possibilities that may reveal tensions, needs, and perspectives omitted from conscious life. Ask yourself, what does this image make me feel, and where does that same emotional pattern appear while I am awake? Silence gives the image enough space to unfold without forcing it into a convenient conclusion. Over time, this practice can create a dialogue between the identity you consciously maintain and the wider psychological life developing beneath it. 6. You are learning to separate your own voice from the collective. A sixth sign of inner change appears when you begin questioning whether the beliefs guiding your life are genuinely yours. Values that once seemed unquestionable may suddenly feel less certain. You may examine your definition of success, the relationships you believe you should pursue, the lifestyle you are expected to desire, or the opinions you repeat because everyone around you considers them normal. This questioning can be unsettling. It may feel as though you are losing direction, when in reality you may be discovering how much of your direction was inherited rather than consciously chosen. From childhood onward, every person absorbs messages from family, culture, religion, education, advertising, and social groups. These influences are not automatically harmful. They give us language, shared meaning, moral frameworks, and a sense of belonging. No one develops in complete isolation from society. The difficulty begins when collective assumptions remain invisible. If you have never examined why you want a particular life, conformity can feel exactly like personal choice. Only when the inherited path starts conflicting with your developing personality does the difference become noticeable. Jung warned about the danger of allowing collective identity to replace individual consciousness. He did not suggest rejecting society or becoming different merely for the sake of rebellion. Individuation is not exaggerated individualism, and it does not mean treating every social expectation as oppression. It means developing enough self-awareness to participate in collective life without being psychologically consumed by it. You can respect tradition without obeying it mechanically, belong to a group without surrendering judgment, and learn from others without using their approval as the only measure of truth. The collective voice often speaks through the word should. You should have achieved more by this age. You should want a larger house, a more impressive career, a particular kind of relationship, or a constantly expanding social life. You should be productive every day, remain positive under pressure, and present a clear identity that others can easily recognize. Some of these expectations may correspond with your authentic values. Others may produce a life that looks correct from the outside, but feels increasingly lifeless from within. Silence helps you hear the emotional difference between a meaningful responsibility and a performance maintained primarily to avoid judgment. Consider someone pursuing a prestigious career because their family has celebrated that path for years. The person is capable and may even enjoy parts of the work, but persistent dissatisfaction begins to grow. Every attempt to question the career is met internally by familiar voices. You are wasting your potential. People would be grateful to have this opportunity. Or, Leaving would disappoint everyone. These thoughts may contain legitimate concerns, yet they do not automatically reveal what the person truly values. Quiet reflection can separate practical fear from inherited loyalty and create room for a more honest decision. Whether that decision is to leave, make adjustments, or remain for consciously chosen reasons. Social media makes this separation more difficult because collective expectations now enter private life continuously. You are exposed not only to the values of your immediate community, but also to carefully selected images of thousands of strangers. Repetition can make a particular lifestyle appear universal, urgent, and necessary. You may begin evaluating your ordinary life against another person's public performance without realizing that the comparison itself is shaping your desires. Periods of digital silence can therefore function as psychological observation. When the stream of external suggestion stops, you can notice which ambitions remain alive and which quickly lose their importance. One useful exercise is to choose a major goal and repeatedly ask why it matters to you. If you want recognition, what do you believe recognition will provide? If you want wealth, is the deeper value security, freedom, status, generosity, or protection from shame? If you want a relationship, are you seeking intimacy or relief from social pressure? Continue until you reach a value, fear, or need that feels emotionally significant. Then ask whether the current goal is the only way to address it. This process does not invalidate the goal. It helps you understand the psychological motive beneath it. Separating your voice from the collective also requires humility, because what feels intensely personal may still be influenced by a different group. A person can leave one community only to adopt the language and assumptions of another without examination. Rebellion can become another form of conformity when identity depends on opposing whatever the majority believes. Your own voice is not necessarily the loudest, most unconventional, or most emotionally dramatic one. It is often quieter and more complex. It can acknowledge responsibility, uncertainty, consequence, and contradiction without demanding immediate validation. As your inner world changes, silence can become the place where borrowed expectations are placed beside lived experience. Ask yourself, if no one could admire, criticize, reward, or punish this decision, what would still matter to me? You may not receive an instant answer, and any answer must eventually be tested through responsible action rather than protected forever in imagination. The purpose is not to escape the collective, but to return to it with greater consciousness. When you know why you choose what you choose, belonging becomes participation rather than surrender, and your life begins to reflect values you have examined instead of instructions you merely inherited. 7. Silence is becoming a place of integration, not escape. The seventh sign of inner change appears when silence begins to feel less like an absence and more like a place where scattered parts of your experience can come together. In earlier periods, being alone may have produced boredom, anxiety, or an urgent desire for distraction. Now, quiet time offers something different. It allows you to recognize connections between your reactions, memories, relationships, and choices. You are not simply withdrawing from external noise. You are developing the capacity to remain present with yourself. Silence becomes meaningful because it helps you understand what constant movement kept fragmented. Integration is different from simply discovering hidden material. Becoming aware of anger, grief, fear, or an unlived desire is only the beginning. The next task is learning how that awareness should influence conscious life. If you recognize that you have been suppressing anger, integration does not mean expressing it destructively. It may mean setting a boundary, naming an injustice, or acknowledging that your constant agreement was partly motivated by fear. If you discover a neglected creative impulse, integration does not necessarily require abandoning your responsibilities. It may begin with making regular space for that creativity instead of continuing to treat it as irrelevant. Jungian individuation involves a continuing relationship between conscious identity and the less familiar parts of the psyche. The goal is not to allow the unconscious to control every decision, nor is it to maintain rigid conscious control over everything unfamiliar. Psychological development requires dialogue. The ego learns that it is important but not complete. Emotions, dreams, bodily responses, and spontaneous images can offer information, while conscious judgment evaluates how that information can be expressed responsibly. Silence supports this dialogue because it slows the impulse to react before understanding what is happening. You may notice this change in the way you handle emotional discomfort. Previously, a difficult feeling might have driven you immediately toward distraction, argument, reassurance, or impulsive action. Now you can sometimes pause long enough to observe it. You recognize that an emotion can be real without providing a complete interpretation of reality. Anxiety may be present without proving that disaster is certain. Anger may contain important information without justifying cruelty. Sadness may need acknowledgement without requiring you to define your entire life through it. This ability to remain with emotion without becoming identical to it is one form of integration. Silence also makes contradiction easier to tolerate. You may love someone and still need firmer boundaries with them. You may appreciate your career and recognize that it consumes too much of your identity. You may feel grateful for your upbringing while acknowledging the wounds it left behind. An unexamined mind often tries to eliminate one side of these tensions. Someone must be entirely good or bad. A choice must be completely right or wrong, and a feeling must be accepted or rejected. A more integrated personality can hold opposing truths long enough to search for a response that respects the complexity of the situation. This does not mean remaining indefinitely undecided. Reflection becomes psychologically useful when it eventually supports action. After recognizing a recurring pattern, you may need to have an honest conversation, change a habit, apologize, seek professional help, end an unhealthy commitment, or accept a responsibility you previously avoided. Silence should strengthen your participation in reality. If it becomes a place where you repeatedly imagine change but never take even a modest step, it may be functioning as avoidance. Insight that never influences behavior can become another sophisticated method of remaining unchanged. A practical way to test your silence is to observe what it produces. After spending time alone, do you feel more capable of listening to others or more contemptuous of them? Do you understand your responsibilities more clearly, or are you constructing reasons to abandon them impulsively? Are your boundaries becoming calmer and more consistent, or are you disappearing without explanation? Healthy silence does not always feel peaceful, but over time it should increase clarity, proportion, and accountability. Escape, by contrast, usually offers temporary relief while allowing the underlying conflict to grow. The distinction is especially important because solitude can be romanticized. Online messages sometimes describe withdrawal as proof that a person has become spiritually advanced or has outgrown everyone else. That idea can encourage isolation, superiority, and avoidance of necessary communication. Jungian growth is not measured by how distant you become from ordinary people. It is reflected in your ability to relate to others without losing contact with your own inner reality. A psychologically meaningful retreat should eventually make a more honest return possible. When silence becomes a place of integration, you do not use it to create a flawless new identity. You use it to recognize more of the person who is already present, the strength and vulnerability, generosity and resentment, certainty and doubt, social self, and private experience. Ask yourself, what truth have I understood in silence that now needs to be lived through a concrete, responsible action? Your inner world is not changing so that you can remain hidden inside it. It is changing so that your external life can gradually become a more truthful expression of the whole person you are learning to become. The growing need for silence can mean many things. It may reflect overstimulation, emotional exhaustion, a changing identity, unresolved feelings, or a genuine need to reconsider the direction of your life. It should never be treated as automatic proof of awakening, exceptional depth, or psychological superiority. Yet when approached with honesty, silence can become a valuable environment for self-observation. It allows you to notice where conversations demand an outdated performance, where inherited expectations conflict with personal values, and where constant stimulation prevents important emotions from reaching conscious awareness. Jung's concept of individuation reminds us that psychological growth is not about becoming perfect or completely independent from others. It is the gradual work of recognizing what has been excluded from conscious identity and finding a responsible place for it in life. This process may involve dreams, shadow qualities, changing ambitions, stronger boundaries, and difficult emotional truths. But reflection must remain connected to reality. When solitude produces greater clarity, compassion, responsibility, and capacity for authentic relationships, it is supporting integration. When it produces prolonged isolation, worsening distress, or an inability to function, seeking qualified support can be an important act of self-respect. You do not need to fear every season in which the world feels too loud. Sometimes the wish for quiet is simply your mind asking for rest. At other times, it is an invitation to listen to a part of yourself that has been ignored for too long. The important question is not how long you can remain alone, but what kind of person returns from the silence. If this video helped you understand your changing inner world with greater depth, subscribe to the channel for more thoughtful explorations of Carl Jung, the unconscious, and the process of becoming more psychologically whole. And share your experience in the comments. Has silence recently felt like an escape from life, or like a way of returning to it more honestly?